The headlines are telling you that your £1,000 savings allowance is gone. They are wrong. The truth, however, is far more costly for most people. The government isn't taking a small bite out of your savings interest. It's preparing to dismantle a foundational pillar of your long-term wealth. And it's happening in plain sight, disguised by confusing terminology and political misdirection. What I am about to explain is not a theoretical problem. It is a confirmed policy change that will permanently reduce the amount of tax-free wealth you can accumulate outside of your pension. For a couple, this single change could represent a loss of over £16,000 in tax-free savings capacity. Stay with me, and I will explain precisely what is changing, why it matters more than the headlines suggest, and the clear three-step strategy you must implement before April 2027 to protect your financial future. Let's consider a couple. We'll call them Mark and Sarah. They are in their late 40s, both diligent professionals, homeowners, with 2 children heading towards university. For years, they have followed the conventional wisdom. They save regularly into a joint savings account, comforted by the knowledge that their personal savings allowance, or PSA, shields the first £1,000 of their interest from the taxman. They see the interest rates on their savings accounts slowly creeping up, and they feel a sense of security. They believe they are doing everything right. They are, in their minds, building a respectable pot of money for their future, perhaps to help with university fees, a deposit for a child's first home, or simply to provide a cushion for their own retirement. They read the headlines about the £1,000 allowance being gone and feel a flicker of panic, but a quick search reassures them it's still there. They breathe a sigh of relief and carry on as before. But their relief is based on a dangerous misunderstanding. While they are focused on the small umbrella of the PSA, they are completely oblivious to the fact that the government is about to shrink the very shelter in which their serious wealth is meant to grow. The real threat isn't the loss of a minor tax break on interest, it's the radical reduction of their ability to save into a cash ISA, the most powerful and straightforward tax-free savings vehicle available to them. Their plan, which relies on accumulating a significant cash reserve over the next decade, is about to hit a wall they don't even see coming. The £80,000 they plan to salt away tax-free over the next 5 years is suddenly an impossibility. The rules of the game have been fundamentally altered, and their sense of security is unfortunately a complete illusion. To understand the gravity of the situation, we must first dismantle the confusion. There are 2 entirely separate concepts at play here, and the government and media often conflate them, leading to precisely the kind of complacency that benefits the Treasury. First, you have the personal savings allowance, the PSA. This is the focus of the misleading headlines. For a basic rate taxpayer, the PSA allows you to earn up to £1,000 in interest from all your taxable savings accounts. That's your standard high street bank accounts, without paying a penny of tax on it. If you are a higher rate taxpayer, that allowance is £500. For additional rate taxpayers, it is 0. Let me be unequivocally clear. The personal savings allowance is not going away. It remains intact. The story ends there. Now let's talk about the real issue. This is about the individual savings account, the ISA. An ISA is not an allowance on interest, it is a tax-proof wrapper. It is a secure container where you can place your money, and everything that happens inside that container, all interest, all dividends, all growth, is permanently shielded from tax, forever. Think of the PSA as a small temporary umbrella that keeps you dry in a light shower. An ISA, on the other hand, is a permanent, reinforced shelter you build to protect your wealth from any storm, no matter how fierce. The government isn't taking away your umbrella, it's taking away almost half the materials you were given to build your shelter. In the autumn budget of 2025, Chancellor Rachel Reeves confirmed a critical change that has gone largely unnoticed by the general public. From the 6th of April 2027, the annual cash ISA allowance for anyone under the age of 65 will be slashed from £20,000 per year to just £12,000. That is a 40% reduction in your capacity to build a tax-free cash fund. This isn't a minor tweak, it is a fundamental policy shift that signals a new, more aggressive stance from the Treasury towards accessible, tax-efficient savings. For a couple like Mark and Sarah, who could previously shelter £40,000 of their savings from tax each year, their combined allowance will plummet to £24,000. Over a decade, that's a £160,000 reduction in the amount of capital they can place into a tax-free environment. The interest on that lost capital will now be exposed to tax year after year. This change is made even more severe by a phenomenon known as fiscal drag. For years, the government has frozen the income tax thresholds. As wages rise with inflation, more and more people are dragged into higher tax brackets. The Institute for Fiscal Studies has projected that millions will be paying tax at the higher rate who previously did not. This has a direct impact on your savings. As you are pushed into a higher tax band, your personal savings allowance is automatically halved from £1,000 to £500. Suddenly, that small umbrella we talked about gets even smaller, making the robust permanent shelter of an ISA not just important, but absolutely critical. And it is precisely at this moment that the government has decided to make that shelter smaller. It's a pincer movement against the prudent saver. This is not an accident, it is a deliberate strategy. By focusing public attention on the non-existent threat to the PSA, the far more significant reduction in the ISA allowance passes by with minimal scrutiny. It is a classic piece of financial misdirection. The promise of a tax-free haven for your savings is being systematically eroded, and you are being encouraged to look the other way. But now you see the truth. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Your financial security depends not on hope, but on structure. It's time to build that structure with the tools you have available before they are taken away. Let me walk you through exactly what this means in practical terms. If you have £20,000 sitting in a standard savings account earning, let's say 4.5% interest per year, you will earn £900 in interest annually. If you are a basic rate taxpayer, that £900 is comfortably below your £1,000 personal savings allowance, so you pay no tax. You feel safe. But what happens when your savings grow to £50,000? Now you are earning £2,250 in interest. Suddenly, you are £1,250 over your allowance. That excess is taxed at 20%, costing you £250 per year. If you are a higher rate taxpayer, the tax is 40%, costing you £500. Over a decade, that's £5,000 lost to tax, simply because your money is sitting in the wrong place. If that same £50,000 had been placed inside a cash ISA, every single penny of that interest would have been yours, tax-free, forever. That is the power of the ISA wrapper, and that is precisely what is being taken away from you. Now consider the long-term impact of the reduction. Let's say you are 45 years old today. Under the old rules, you could contribute £20,000 per year into a cash ISA for the next 20 years until you retire at 65. That's a total of £400,000 of capital placed into a tax-free environment. Assuming a modest 3% annual growth, that pot would grow to approximately £537,000, all of it completely tax-free. Under the new rules, if you are under 65, you can only contribute £12,000 per year. Over the same 20 years, that's £240,000 of capital. With the same 3% growth, that pot would grow to approximately £322,000. The difference is £215,000. That is not a rounding error. That is a life-changing amount of money. That is the difference between a comfortable retirement and a constrained one. That is the difference between being able to help your children and being a financial burden to them. This is not abstract policy. This is your future. But there is a critical nuance that you must understand. The reduction only applies to new contributions made after April 2027. Any money you have already placed into a cash ISA before that date remains protected and continues to grow tax-free. This is why the next 2 years are so crucial. Every pound you can get into an ISA before the deadline is a pound that will benefit from the full protection of the old rules forever. It is grandfathered in. This creates a window of opportunity. If you act now, you can secure an additional £40,000 of tax-free capacity that will otherwise be lost. For a couple, that is £80,000. This is not about gaming the system. This is about using the rules as they currently exist to protect your family's financial future. The government has given you notice. It is your responsibility to act on that notice. This situation demands a clear, decisive, and immediate response. This is not the time for passive observation. It is the time for strategic action. I am going to lay out a 3-part plan that you need to consider and, where appropriate, implement with urgency. This is how you turn this challenge into an opportunity and secure your position before the rules change permanently in April 2027. First, you must maximize your ISA allowance now, while it still exists in its current form. You have 2 full tax years before the reduction takes effect: the current tax year of 2025-26 and the upcoming tax year of 2026-27. In each of these years, you can place up to £20,000 into a cash ISA. For an individual, that is a total of £40,000 that can be moved into a permanent tax-free shelter. For a couple, that is a combined total of £80,000. This is a window of opportunity that will close. Every pound you get into an ISA before the April 2027 deadline is a pound that will work for you, tax-free, for the rest of your life. Failing to use this allowance is the equivalent of voluntarily handing back £8,000 of your tax-free capacity per person. It is a gift to the Treasury that you simply do not need to make. You must gather your available cash reserves and prioritise filling this £20,000 allowance for both years. It is the single most powerful action you can take. If you do not have £20,000 in cash readily available, you need to think creatively. Can you redirect a portion of your monthly savings? Can you delay a discretionary purchase? Can you use a bonus or a tax refund? The goal is not to create financial hardship, but to recognise that this is a rare moment where a clear, time-limited opportunity exists. It is worth making short-term sacrifices to secure long-term benefits. Some people will consider whether to take money out of other investments to fill their ISA allowance. This is a complex decision that depends on your individual circumstances, but it is a conversation worth having with yourself or with a financial advisor. The key is to treat this deadline with the seriousness it deserves. This is not something to revisit in 2 years when the window has closed. This is something to act on now. Second, you need to understand the specific carve-out that was included in this policy change. The reduction in the cash ISA allowance only applies to individuals under the age of 65. If you are 65 or over, you will retain the full £20,000 annual allowance. This has been dubbed the pensioner perk. For many, this will be a crucial planning tool. If you are approaching this age, you may consider delaying certain contributions until you cross that threshold. For couples where one partner is over 65 and the other is under, your household's financial strategy needs to adapt. It may become significantly more tax efficient to channel the majority of your joint savings through the ISA of the older partner. This isn't about avoiding tax, it's about using the rules as they are written, with foresight and intelligence. The government has created a 2-tier system. It is your responsibility to understand which tier you are in and to structure your affairs accordingly. This age-based distinction also raises important questions about intergenerational fairness. The policy effectively protects the savings capacity of pensioners while reducing it for working-age individuals who are still building their wealth. This is a political choice, not an economic necessity. It reflects a calculation that pensioners are more likely to vote and to react negatively to changes that affect them directly. Working-age savers, on the other hand, are seen as a softer target. They are busy, distracted, and less likely to mobilise politically around a policy change that will only fully impact them in a decade or more. This is why it is so important to understand these changes now. You cannot rely on the system to protect your interests. You must protect them yourself. Third, this is a moment to conduct a fundamental review of your entire savings and investment strategy. The landscape is changing. A reduced cash ISA allowance may mean that for some, a stocks and shares ISA becomes a more attractive option, as it is set to retain the full £20,000 allowance. While it involves investment risk, it also offers the potential for tax-free growth that can outpace inflation. You must assess your own tolerance for risk and decide if this is an appropriate vehicle for a portion of your long-term savings. Furthermore, consider the Lifetime ISA, or LISA, if you are under 40. You can save up to £4,000 per year, and the government will add a 25% bonus, up to £1,000 per year. This is an exceptionally powerful tool for first-time buyers or for retirement savings. The key is to move beyond a single, passive savings account and to think like a portfolio manager. You must now actively allocate your capital across a range of tax-efficient wrappers, pensions, ISAs, LISAs, to build a resilient and optimized financial structure. The era of relying on one simple savings account is over. There is also a broader strategic point to consider. The government's willingness to reduce the cash ISA allowance signals that ISAs in general are no longer seen as untouchable. For years, ISAs have been a sacred cow in British financial planning. A bipartisan commitment to encourage saving, that consensus is fraying. If the cash ISA allowance can be cut by 40% with minimal political backlash, what is to stop future governments from reducing it further, or from imposing new restrictions on stocks and shares ISAs, or from introducing lifetime caps on ISA savings? These are not idle speculations. They are logical extensions of the current policy trajectory. The lesson is clear: use the allowances you have while you have them. Do not assume they will always be there. The rules are not fixed, they are fluid, and they are moving in a direction that is increasingly unfavourable to the saver. Let me give you another real-world scenario to illustrate the urgency. Consider Emma, a 52-year-old teacher who has diligently saved £15,000 over the past few years. She keeps it in a standard savings account, earning 4% interest. That's £600 per year in interest, comfortably within her £1,000 PSA. She reads the headlines about the £1,000 allowance being gone and feels a moment of concern, but then confirms it's still there and relaxes. She doesn't realise that the real issue isn't the PSA, it's the ISA. If she moves that £15,000 into a cash ISA now and then contributes another £5,000 before the end of the tax year to max out her £20,000 allowance, she secures that full capacity. If she does the same next year, she has £40,000 in a tax-free wrapper. Over the next 13 years until she retires, that £40,000 growing at 3% per year will be worth approximately £59,000, all tax-free. If she doesn't act and the allowance drops to £12,000, she will only be able to contribute £156,000 over those 13 years instead of £260,000. The difference in her retirement pot could be over £100,000. That is the cost of inaction. That is the cost of being distracted by the wrong headline. This is also a moment to think about the order in which you use your allowances. From April 2027, the government is changing the rules about how allowances are allocated against your income. Currently, your personal allowance and other reliefs are applied in a way that generally favours your employment and pension income first. From 2027, the order will change, and your allowances will be applied to employment and pension income before savings and dividends. This is a technical change, but it has real consequences. It means that if you have multiple sources of income, your savings interest will be taxed sooner and more heavily. This makes the ISA wrapper even more valuable. It's another layer of complexity designed to extract more tax from the prudent saver. The system is being re-engineered piece by piece to reduce your capacity to build wealth outside of structures that the government can easily monitor and tax. This is a call to action. It is a warning that the ground beneath your feet is shifting. The government is banking on your inertia. It is hoping you will remain focused on the trivialities while the substantive framework of your financial independence is quietly dismantled. Do not give them that satisfaction. Take these 3 steps. Maximize your allowance now. Understand the age-related rules and conduct a full strategic review. Plan with clarity. Act with conviction. Be the responsible custodian of your wealth. Let us be absolutely clear. This is not merely a financial adjustment, it is a philosophical shift. It represents a move away from encouraging broad, accessible tax-free saving for the working population and towards a more complex, tiered system that benefits specific demographics and penalises others. The message is that if you are under 65, your ability to build a secure, tax-free cash buffer for your future is being deliberately curtailed. This is a betrayal of the principle of saving, a principle that has been encouraged for generations. You are being told to save for a rainy day, while simultaneously being given a smaller and smaller roof to shelter you from the storm. But understanding this is your power. You are no longer operating under the illusion that the system is designed to be simple or fair. You are now operating with the clear-eyed reality of how it actually works. This knowledge transforms you from a passive victim of policy changes into an active architect of your own financial destiny. You can now see the moves on the chessboard and plan your own strategy in response. The window to act is small, but it is open. The next 2 years are critical. The decisions you make before April 2027 will echo for decades to come, determining the level of financial freedom and security you and your family will enjoy. This is the moment to take control. Next week, we will discuss the hidden risks within your pension and the one document that could determine whether your family inherits it or the government does. You do not want to miss it.